Good evening. All right, I understand it. A great service this morning. I was at Liberty, and I can't get away from Valley View, people. I can't believe that our scripture reading was by who it was. His parents go out at Liberty. Where's Dustin at? Where are you? Where'd you go? Did he leave? Weirdo. Anyway, his parents come up to me and say, "What do you think of Dustin Jones?" And I just look at him. I'm like, how do you answer this exactly? He picked a great wife. That was my first answer. And they said, "Yeah, what do you think of him?" I said, "He's got great kids." And they both said, "Yeah, what do you think of him?" I said, "He's the most obnoxious, weird guy I've ever met. I have no idea what he's about to say." And they said, "Yeah, we don't know where he got that either." It's just interesting and grateful to meet. And then Randy's got some relatives of some kind there. They're Simpkins too, and they speak highly of him like everybody does here. And so it's just like you've got eyes everywhere, just in case I say something I shouldn't or something. But I promise you, I didn't. I missed being here, and I'm grateful to be here tonight before going out there again. They don't start till 7, so I can pull both of them off. I want to say one thing about Jonathan. One of the things that drew me here was this idea of a resident minister, a person who comes on board to kind of learn ministry, and then he's going to launch off somewhere. I don't know if at the point that Jonathan's ready to launch off, if we'll be ready to launch him off. He's such an interesting guy, and I got to tell you, one of the things that tells him about a minister is he willing to stick with the text that he's been given. He's going to be starting through the book of James, and I know that's not always easy to preach, and sometimes, when you got this passage, I'm just not sure where I'm at on this yet. I could easily bail on this and go somewhere else and do a sermon I've done before. He's stuck with it. He is doing some great work here. He's a little weird. He can't study with pants on. Now, that's going to be a weird thing. You come in here, and he's got the most obnoxious pairs of shorts I've ever seen in my life. They glow in the dark and all this sort of stuff. And when he tells me he can't study with his pants on, I'm saying, go down the hall, boy. Go down the hall somewhere. And Lamont just said, "I'm so glad our main preacher's not like that." I'm just so glad of that. But he is a delight. He was trying to study James 1, and he was come up to the baptistry, and I think he was going to let his feet dangle in the baptistry to get his mind thinking. And I'm just like, what kind of a creature is this weirdo, right? That's the kind of people we get at Valley View, people like that. And he's doing a great job, and I'm grateful for him. Hey, could you just interrupt this and put a slide of myth, the announcement slide of myth on here? I hate to do this to you, but I'm going to do it because I'm going to test how good you are, Paul. How good are you? How long does it take? Time it. That is not the myth slide. That ain't either. Keep going. I hate doing it. Okay, right there. You see this one? Okay, so Jonathan and Parker and I are driving along visiting people, none of whom were home. We went to 6 houses, and nobody answered the door. I'm assuming they're not home. Some of you are here now, and I'm assuming you weren't home. But anyway, as we were driving along, we were coming up with a name for this event. This event was something that Jonathan and Parker were kind of hammering out together, and despite the fact that they came up with it, it's a good idea, and it's called, did you get that? It's a good idea even though they came, okay. Mature means older people. Mature and you together in harmony. Myth. A lot of people say myths aren't true. We're going to find out whether it's true, whether it's possible that older people and younger people can come together for a cause. In this congregation, as we move into the future, there cannot be a separation between younger people and older people. We are one church. We are one church, and we must reflect that in what we do. And so as we were thinking about this, and I was throwing this out to them, they had already come up with this plan. So Monday, not tomorrow, but a week from Monday, we are asking all the people who fit this description, if you are older or younger, you're invited. How many of you are older or younger? Raise your hand. That's who we're shooting for. Some of you didn't, and I don't know what you are. Younger, older, it doesn't matter. We're going to come together. There's going to be food provided, so don't let that be an excuse. And we're going to get together. They're going to chat together, and you're going to learn singing from each other. And it's going to be one of the neatest nights for people who come out here. I want you, don't anybody say, that's not for me, that's not for me. We just told you it's older people and younger people together in harmony. We're going to sing together and be together. It's a great event, not tomorrow night, but a week from tomorrow night, and I really urge you to support that, because that is a move in the right direction. It's a great thing. So I just got to push that a little bit. Tonight we're going to do something a little strange. I got an email from a friend who was in the military. I just ran this by Bill Barry back here, and he says, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. And this was an email he sent me about some phenomenon in World War II by the name of Kilroy. Now, some of you are going to know exactly what I'm talking about, and some of you are going to look at me like, what are you talking about? And I'll explain this to you. But as we go through this and consider this historic, relevant thing from World War II, as all Americans would have some kind of appreciation for it, we're going to apply it just a little bit in a very soft way. There's nothing deep here tonight. There's nothing that takes a lot of tremendous thinking to grasp tonight. But it's something profound that you need to keep in your mind all the time. He's engraved in stone in the National War Memorial in Washington, D.C., back in a small alcove where very few people actually go to look at it. From the World War II generation, this will bring back memories. For you who are younger, it's a bit of trivia that is a part of history, and you might just find it interesting. No one knew who it was, but everybody knew the name Kilroy, and it looks like this. Just a hand-drawn image. You'd almost swear it was like a cartoon, and I guess it sort of is. In 1946, the American Transit Association, through its radio program called Speak to America, sponsored this contest. Nationwide, they wanted to know who Kilroy really was. And they offered a prize because it began with, in like a trains and boats and stuff. And so they offered the prize of an actual trolley car to the person who would prove to everybody that he himself was the real Kilroy. Almost 40 people came forward to kind of claim it and say, Kilroy's me, but none of them claimed it right. None of them were convincing except one man. His name was James Kilroy, and he lived in Halifax, Massachusetts. He had evidence and he had an explanation. Next one. He was 46 years old. He worked in a shipyard during the war, and he checked at the Four River Shipyard in Quincy, Massachusetts. What I mean by checked is you go and you count the number of rivets, because riveters, as they were making boats, making train cars, they were paid by the rivet. And so after they were done, these workers would go and they would count the rivets and put a check mark saying, I've checked this one. I've checked this entire block for rivets. And so don't check it again, because the idea was somebody could come by, erase that, and they check it again, and people get paid twice for doing one thing. And so they didn't want to overpay people and lose money. They would check it with semi-waxed lumber chalk. And so after every time he would check it, he would put this image on there. It wasn't an image at first, it was just a check mark. When the foreman found out that some people actually were coming behind this guy and erasing that image, go ahead to the next one if you would, and erasing the image, they decided they got to put a stop to it because they were losing too much money. And so they called James in here, James Kilroy in, and said, this is what's happening. There's an abuse of this counting, and we want to put a stop to it. But you know, he was having to crawl in these very, very tight spaces. He couldn't use spray paint. He couldn't use a brush. He couldn't do anything like that. So he decided, I'm going to stick with the chalk, but I'm going to add something to it. Add something to it that makes it harder to erase. And so he put Kilroy was here. And then over time, he made this image of a fence and a guy looking up over it with his nose hanging over, as if to say, I've counted this, are you going to try to do it again? Kind of be an external conscience to people. And suddenly, this became something that appeared on all these ships and all these train cars. The riveters did take note of this image, and they actually stopped trying to wipe it away and count it twice. Now, originally the idea was to erase all this anyway before they sent these things out, but during the war they had to produce them so fast and send them off so fast they couldn't erase them. So suddenly they were leaving the shipyard with these things, with Kilroy is here, and it was going all over the world. Kilroy was going all over the world, and the Kilroy tradition was born. The riveters were paid this way. He was checking them this way, and this system began to grow and grow and grow. And soon the image went far beyond ships. The message did something for the servicemen, and they started picking up this habit and spreading it all over Europe and the South Pacific. It was no longer seen just on ships or trains, but on all sorts of mediums and on brick walls, places far beyond where anybody could go. And in fact, there was places where Kilroy never could have gone, but people began to see it, and then when they would be the first to land somewhere, they would go to some brick building with a piece of chalk and write, "Kilroy was here," just for fun, just to increase the morale of the GIs. By the end of the war, Kilroy had been here, he had been there, he'd been everywhere, on long hauls to Berlin and Tokyo, the troops in all places. Kilroy was a complete mystery. Nobody really had any idea what this was. But what they knew for sure was that someone named Kilroy had already been where they were. Someone had already been there first and experienced whatever they were experiencing. And as a joke, U.S. servicemen began placing the graffiti wherever they landed, claiming that Kilroy was already here before they got here. So somebody run around a corner, put it on a wall, and say, "Hey guys, look at this. He was already here." It became a legend. Legend overcame reality, and Kilroy became this legendary super GI who had already been there, no matter what the troops were experiencing or had to go through. It became a challenge to place this logo in the most unlikely places. They say it's on the top of Mount Everest. They say it's on the Statue of Liberty way up high. It's on the bottom of or it was at one time, of the Arc de Triomphe, and then scrawled even in the dust of the moon. I have a hard time believing that one, but that's the legend. The war continued. The legend grew. It grew beyond the attention even of the U.S. troops. Underwater demolition teams would routinely go ashore in Japanese-held territories. And they would go in there and they'd map out the terrain for the people who were going to be coming to invade these areas. And so they were obviously the first U.S. troops here, and they would go even underwater and put this on the places they were going to. And on one occasion, they reported seeing an enemy troop trying to paint over the "Kilroy was here" sign. And then, the most obnoxious, it seems to me, in 1945, an outhouse was built for the exclusive use of Roosevelt, Stalin, and Churchill at the Potsdam Conference. Its first occupant, the first person to use it, was Stalin, and when he emerged from the outhouse, he looked at his aide and he spoke in Russian and said, "Who in the world is Kilroy?" He was in their outhouse. So when James Kilroy claimed to be the real Kilroy, he needed proof. He brought officials from the shipyard, some of the riveters. He won the trolley car. He gave it to his children as a Christmas gift. And yet, the tradition continues. If you had been outside Osama bin Laden's compound when he was killed, you'll see this picture. See if this is next. Keep going. Keep going. Right there. Nobody knew where bin Laden was, but Kilroy did, and he was here that day. I was sent this email by a guy who was in the military, and he says, I don't remember this. He was more in Korea and after, but he says, "I remember my father telling me stories about Kilroy, and it brought great encouragement and comfort and sense of peace to our troops when they were over there." And I just want to think about, how can we make an application of this? There's two or three I can think of just off the top of my head. The first one was read a moment ago, Romans chapter 1, verse 20. God's fingerprint is everywhere, all over the world. It's as if everywhere we look, there's a "God was here" sign. That's what he left, his fingerprints on everything. And there's no place you can go where God wasn't there and speak it into existence. And if we had a contest, kind of like they did with Kilroy, if humanity was honest, they know full well who created these wonders. Can't be an accident of nature. Can't be an accident of evolution. There has to be something behind this, and we know who was behind it. It's like a Kilroy sign on everything in creation. God's like that. God created this place. It's his, and his fingerprints are everywhere. I can see the sign as a source of encouragement that you are not alone. When you think that you're in a place where no one understands you, no one's ever been where you are, you can take note that Kilroy's been there. Jesus was given a name that means God with us. And we're told by the Hebrew writer in Hebrews chapter 4 that Jesus experienced the very same temptations. All of the things that we face, and generally, they've been experienced by Jesus too, and he fought them off fully intact. And he goes on to say, therefore, we can call on him in our time of need. No, anything you're experiencing is not unique, because our Kilroy has been there. He's been there and he's been through that and he's defeated it and he's shown us that he is for us. Our Kilroy has been there. I can also see this as a symbol of hope. For the believer, it's not just that God was here. It's that God is always in the present tense. God is here. When you're reading through Psalm 23, and you know the psalm as well as I do, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He, third person singular. He, and then you get to verse 3. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. What pronoun is it? Come on, you all know this. Is it he? No, it's you. It turns to the second person. It turns to him. Instead of talking about God, we're talking about God to people. Oh, God is my shepherd, and he does this for me. But when I'm in the valley of the shadow of death, I'm speaking straight to him. He's present with us there. We're not talking about him, we're talking to him. That's the greatness of our God. He's always there. So, when we're given our marching orders to teach all nations, because God has given all authority, there's this ending of the Great Commission that is this great comforting truth. Lo, I am with you always to the very end of the age. There's one song I love to sing. It's unlike any other song that I like singing. Mine are fast-paced. But if you look at number 52 in the songbook, it becomes something very special to me. And I'm going to make an attempt at singing this, leading this one, not singing it. I'm not going to sing you a solo. We're not doing that here. But I'm going to try to lead this thing. And it's going to be wrong, but you all figure it out. You'll get to the end of this. Pay particular attention as we go along here. What is he saying in this song? And why does this fit this particular... Boy, you're good. He is doing more than I ever asked or imagined. Paul is like God. All right, let's try this. Father and friend, thy light, thy love, beaming through all thy works we see. Thy glory gilds the heavens above, and all the earth is full of thee. Thy voice we hear, thy presence feel, while thou too pure for mortal sight, enwrapped in clouds invisible, reignest the Lord of life and light. Now get this third verse. You ready for this? Thy children shall not faint nor fear, sustained by this delightful thought, since thou their God art everywhere, they cannot be where thou art not. Can your kids ever be where God is not? They can't. That's what that song is singing. When your kids are going off to college, sing that song, okay? It's going to get you through some weird hours. There was a time when Abby with anxiety, she had anxiety stuff all the time, and it was terrible. And so there was one verse I just kept saying to her over and over again. I don't know if this helps or not, but I would make her say it over and over again. And this is the last verse I want to share with you from Joshua chapter 1, verse 9. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened. Do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Is that true? It is true. It doesn't matter what you're experiencing, where you're having to go, what you're having to do. Can I tell you this? Your Kilroy was there. He's here. He's present. Our God has been here before anything existed, and He's responsible for everything that is. He sustains it. Our God is here right now. He's present for us in all that we face, and He's going to go home with you, and He's going to get up with you, and He's going to walk around with you tomorrow. Our God will be here until what we call the end, when He takes us home. The Revelation writer has Jesus saying it this way in chapter 1. I am the Alpha and the Omega, who is, who was, who is to come, the Almighty. Our God was, our God is, our God will be, always and forever, and you can count on that every day of your life. If there's anyone who needs to respond this evening, make it known as we stand and sing to encourage you.